So let's perhaps start with introductions. We have this very strange situation where we have a pretty tight group of people who participate together all the time. Like, for example, Leighton has been with us, I don't even know for how many years.
Yeah,
Ted has been with us for a while. But then at the same time, we almost never meet. So we exchange emails almost every day, definitely every week. We know each other's names, but hardly ever do we have an opportunity to talk. And so this is one of those very rare opportunities when at least some of us meet sort of face to face. And so perhaps we will do a little introductions just so we know who is here, and those who are here can meet other people. So, well, you know me, so I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. Las Taras. So I'm originally from Ukraine, have lived like half a dozen countries before I ended up here. It's actually has been 9 years for me in North Carolina. So that's the longest, I guess only in Ukraine when I left it at 16. So I had lived there for longer. And and I've been with XCulture for about 7 years now. So who wants to go next?
Well, maybe me. Actually, I have been in I guess now in 3 projects. First, XCulture was really a project where I only had 1 test person.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a professor of entrepreneurship at the Estonian Business School. Worked quite long here. Also, I have some business angel activities during recent years. So my main interest is really how to link entrepreneurship and international business. And I think XCulture is a really great thing for cross-cultural networking, for cross-border networking. At the same time, what's my challenge? I have many students this time also who are working. So they are coming in the evenings, and sometimes indeed they have difficulties to get out from their comfort zone.
Right.
And main challenge is sometimes people start blaming other team members.
Oh, yes.
And saying that they are the good guys, they do everything in time, others don't do, others don't show up. So that's the thing. I need some maybe good ideas how to deal with this phenomena, because otherwise if I don't deal, then maybe such national or cultural prejudice will even become deeper.
Right. No, yeah, those are very good points too. So we will talk about more mature students who work and free writing and things like that, which happens all the time, as you pointed out. So, or at least we hear all the time about. So, yes. Who goes next? Al, by the way, Al, we see your screen, but we don't see you. So if you want to unshare your screen, this way we will see you on the screen instead. So who wants to go next?
I'd love to do that, but I don't have a video monitor on the screen, so I'll just be blanked out for today.
That's fine. No problem at all. All right. Martha, would you like to introduce yourself maybe?
Yeah, sure. So Martha Mesnevsky, I'm at Ivey Business School in Canada. Until recently, I was at IMD in Switzerland doing a lot of exec ed work. But Ivey is my home school. It's where I did my graduate work, and all my family lives around here. So it was time to come back to Canada, and we came back to Ivey. Been back for a year and a half. As Stas knows, I've been following the XCulture project closely ever since it started, because I have a big interest in multicultural teams, diverse teams, and virtual teams and global teams and what they do. And I've tried many times to participate, but the MBA program at IMD just did not allow it in any way. And so I'm so excited now. I have 120 or something.
Right.
It's like 100 students in it this year, which I'm a little concerned about how I'm going to do the grading. But other than that, I'm really, really excited to finally be part of this. So thanks very much. I'm so pleased to see where it's come. It's really exciting.
And I will use this opportunity to say a few words. Martha may not know that, but first of all, in my training, and I guess that would probably apply to Leighton because we did our graduate degrees at the same time, actually at the same school. So we actually grew up on your work. So I still remember you had in the 90s a bunch of publications on global virtual teams when nobody even was talking about that. So I remember there was one, 1995, one of the probably most popular. I can't remember the exact title, but I remember the year.
Communications, yeah.
Work was an inspiration for this project. So, but what I wanted to say here is that since we have some researchers who specifically study teams or HROB in general, or maybe even entrepreneurship or strategy. In addition to all the wonderful teaching work that we do, research is a big component of this project. And so Martha, particularly, the reason I wanted to say it after your introduction, but others, if you have interest in this topic, we have tons of data. First of all, we have data on tens of thousands of people who have already participated in the project, about 40,000 to be exact. And then we will add another probably close to 5,000 this semester. And so we have close to 1,000 teams in a given semester. And so we measure all kinds of things from performance to attitudes, to background, to interactions, to conflicts, to, leadership, you name it, personality, cultural intelligence, cultural values, how they communicate, how they interact. And then we measure it through multiple channels: self-report, peer evaluations, instructor evaluations, administrative records, multi-level, so individual, team, class, country, longitudinal, so it's every week for basically about 10 or 11 waves, I believe we have until they're done, qualitative, quantitative, so all kinds of data. And so if you are interested in research, we are interested in you, because one of the problems we have is we generate immense amounts of data, but never really have the time to process them. So we have about, I don't know, maybe a dozen publications already, and have probably another dozen or 2 dozen papers in development. But many more papers hidden in that database. And so if you're interested in taking a look at those data, we would like you to do so, because otherwise some of those discoveries will never be discovered and just stay in that database hidden.
If I may ask a question.
Yes, please go ahead, yes.
I have read some articles based on X-Culture, but do you have such a short list of best articles which make really the best use of this data collected?
Yes, if you see my screen, so if you go to xculture.org for researchers, you will have here a bunch of sublinks. And so you can look at, for example, research projects, studies that are currently in development. So some of them are almost finished, some of them are still in development. One will be submitted today. And then if you click here, and I think we have a sublink there as well, these are the published studies that I had the time to enter into the database. I think there are a few more that just never got to it. By the way, we did have 6 dissertations, doctoral dissertations defended based on our data, and there are about a dozen more still in development. Excellent. And there are too many conference presentations, so I just didn't have the time to do that. But you can find them, and in fact, it seems like for most of them we do have a link, so you can download them directly or find them through Google Scholar. But that should give you an idea as to what we already are doing. But as I said, there is so much more in those, in that database hidden that, if you would like to take a look, it would be good for you, but also kind of service to us, because as I said, if somebody doesn't do it, nobody will do it. So. All right, well, I see more and more people are coming, so perhaps let's do a few more quick introductions and then move on to the more kind of administrative work. And by the way, I don't know most of you, so it seems like most of you are people I haven't met at conferences, so I know some, but not all. So who wants to do the introduction next?
I can go ahead.
I don't know, Leighton, I guess, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Hey, I'm Leighton Wilkes. I'm at the University of Calgary in Calgary, Canada. Just love X-Culture, of course, know Vaz for a number of years now. Do this as part of my cross-cultural management class, which is pretty much a OB class with a cross-cultural element to it. So just always a pleasure to, help out here and, to be involved. And I was involved with the first research hackathon that went on in Miami in the summer, and just a wonderful organization. So happy to be here and help out.
Thank you, Leighton. Who else?
Hi, good morning. I'm Beverly Barrett. I'm joining you from Puebla, Mexico. This semester I'm teaching at Universidad de las Americas Puebla in the master's program. It's a US accredited program. And I've been studying at University of Houston in Florida. in Miami and in Texas. And I did my doctorate at University of Miami in Florida. And one of my colleagues, Tracy Liu, works with you, Vaz, at UNC.
Yes. Excellent.
So she and I studied together at University of Miami. I did international studies and she did leadership, but we were speaking recently and she recommended X-Culture since I would be down in Mexico this semester. So we're excited. Our class focuses more on political economy themes and international business themes, thinking about trade and finance and comparative cases doing business abroad, but we're excited to partner with a team in the States. So we look forward to hearing more about it.
Very nice.
Thank you for creating opportunity.
And talking about the different courses that participate in the project, initially we thought it would be all international business, but it's actually quite a mix. So we have students who are taking strategy, entrepreneurship, cross-cultural communication, HR, OB, industrial organizational psychology, so all kinds of different disciplines. And that's actually good because the challenges, if you've seen them already, they usually have a range of questions, you know, from competition analysis to finding the best market and analyzing the market, to the marketing strategy for that country, to HR strategy. And so no matter what the background of the students is, there would be probably some question that would be a good fit for their interests. And so that allows them to, you know, kind of bring different skills to the table and work better. So
we're looking forward to it. So thank you so much. Thank you for organizing it. We look forward to working with everyone.
Very nice.
So, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Hossein?
Yeah, Hossein Varamini. I'm at Elizabethtown College. I am the Director of International Business, and I teach an introductory course in IB first-year students, but I am planning to use X-Culture for the first time in the second session of this semester from March to April in my International Business Seminar. And these are seniors who all have had study abroad experience at least for a semester. What I've been doing the past few years is what I call CIP projects, collaborative industry partnership projects, that I actually have identified companies near us, most of them, like Armstrong or Hershey, they are very close to us. So we've done projects somewhat similar to X-Culture projects for companies near our college. And I've been kind of interested in X-Culture for the past few years. I've kind of become familiar with it, but I never put it into the program because there are so many other things that they do at the senior level in this class that I thought they may not have enough time. But I'm trying it this year. It's going to be a learning experience for me as well as for my students. I have an unusually small class this year, only 8 students in my senior class. Normally I have 15 to 20. But we're looking forward to kind of have them to go through the experience.
Very nice, yes. Nice to meet you, Hossein. Who else do we have? Salman and Jennifer, go ahead, Salman or Jennifer, whoever.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Salman Ali, I'm from India. So this is the first time I'm using X-Culture. In fact, I was planning to run this course, International Business. Unfortunately, I couldn't run this time. So, but some of the students were still interested because I floated this, as an optional thing now. There are about 10 students who is help. I'm looking forward to the exposure and what it brings out. Because even as far as teaching is concerned, also I'm new because about a year before. So I'm all looking forward to what all is there, and let's see how we can take it forward. Thank you very much, all of you.
Nice to meet you, Salman. So Jennifer, Loretta, and then Al, I guess, and we'll be done with introductions. Please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lee, speaking to you from Rochester, New York, and it's my second semester with X-Culture. I teach business ethics and senior seminar, which is where I'm using the experience, and look forward to learning more and hearing more from all of you today. Thanks.
Thank you. Loretta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Vas. Nice to see you.
Yes, after many years.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We collaborate for many years and never had a chance to see each other.
Yeah, true. I think this is my 5th year with this project. And I think that is great for students. I have undergraduate students, but they participate under a volunteer base, and they are so excited and they learn a lot. I think that few of them last year and maybe 2 years ago, they also came to this symposium.
Yes, yeah, we had
They
several.
were really, really, really excited.
Yes.
Unless we do not have any support from the university in terms of cash of money, you know, is all in the budget of their family. So, I mean.
Yes, and where are you located exactly?
Well, yes, you're right. I am from Italy,
Right.
at Catholic University, and I'm in Brescia, that is near Milano, north of Italy.
Yes, our next symposium will be in Macerata in Italy.
I know.
In July, yes, so just across the street from you.
Yes, if I can, I will join you. Yeah, because it's so near. Yes.
Yes, very nice. And I see the picture, I mean, Al Rosenblum is here, but we don't see your picture, but perhaps very quickly, please tell us where you are.
Sure. Al Rosenblum from Dominican University outside of Chicago. I've used XCulture off and on for maybe 5 years when I teach my international marketing class. It's great.
Yes, thank you so much. And I see also Michelle and Elena are here, but I'm not sure, we don't see your picture, so I'm not sure if you can talk or if you're just dialing in from the phone. So if you would like to introduce yourselves. Well, it may not work technically, so if you can chime in later on, that's fine too. So, but now let's go directly to the business. So most of you, or at least half of you, have participated before, so you know how the project goes. For those who are the first timers, I'll give a very, very quick overview. What's going on right now, at least with the early track, is they have received welcome letters. And the welcome letter tells them essentially, as you know, you're in the course by professor such and such. Part of your course is this project XCulture. And so your first step is to download or go to this page. And on this page, there are all the materials that you need. Just a second, 1A, so the password I need to remember. And so there they will watch a short video, like 3 minutes, that describes the project. Then another video, also like 3 minutes, that tells them a little bit more about how students, or what students can do to maximize the utility of this project for themselves. Then there is a little file, PDF file, that's sort of what we call a training module. So this one first describes the project very quickly, then has a list of the known problems and best practices, you know, all those issues when somebody is not participating or not replying. And then there is a block on online collaboration tools like Google Translate, Doodle, Dropbox, Google Docs. Again, students don't have to use all of those, but we try to at least give them an introduction of what tools are available in case they would like to give it a try in their teams. And historically, most of the teams try more than just emails. So they start with emails, but when the time comes to actually, you know, get closer to one another, they would create sometimes a Facebook group, sometimes a group in Viber, in, you know, create a shared Dropbox folder or Google Docs. So it seems like they at least give a try to, you know, some of these advanced tools. Then once the project starts, in fact, for the early track, it's kind of already started. So Monday is the official first day. They will receive first the welcome letters, then they do the test, then they receive the names of their team members. We will do it, usually we try to do it on the morning of the first day, but in most cases it ends in the afternoon or even sometimes kind of late afternoon. And so that's when they will receive the names of their team members. And so the email will contain 6 or 7 names and email addresses, depending on how many team members they have. In fact, usually we start with about 5 and then add 1 more in the, you know, by the end of the first week. And so they would be instructed to contact the team members as soon as possible, introduce themselves, and basically start the project. And then we have already scheduled webinars with all of the partner companies for the first week. And so if you go to the training page, you will see the list of the challenges, so the companies that participate this semester. So we have, I believe, 6 in the early track. And there are several more that are begging to be added to the list. So maybe we'll add one or more or two more for the late track, but I'm trying to keep it a little bit, shorter at least, so that we have a more kind of personal contact with each company. Once it's a little too many, then it becomes difficult to organize all those webinars and all those meetings. Even when you have 6 companies, that's 12 webinars. It takes like half a day to do it with the time, to schedule, to do the recording, to share the recording. And so just the webinars is basically like teaching a whole course. And then obviously have all the other correspondence. So in the first week, we will have the webinars. And so the schedule is already in each of them webinar instructions. So the students will see the webinar 1 when the company introduces itself, and then webinar 2 when the teams have a chance to share with the company what they have and get some feedback before they submit the work. And all they would have to do is just click on the link. They will see the registration. They put their name, can put it on the calendar. The system will automatically send them the reminder. The webinars are optional. They don't have to do it, but if they do attend, they will have a chance to interact with the CEO of the company directly. And many students do it. Some don't, mainly because, again, time zone differences, classes at that time. But we do record all those meetings so they can watch them later on. Then basically, once the project starts, every week there is a deadline. And we used to give them all the freedom and basically not talk to the students until the end of the semester, but that was bad practice. What happens in many teams is that they don't do much and then try to get everything done in the last week. So with the weekly deliverables and weekly deadlines, we sort of prompt them to be proactive and participate from the very beginning. And so first week we'll be mainly meeting and greeting each other and kind of deciding on who does what, writing a team charter. The next week they only have to select a client. So out of these 6 or 7 companies, they will select one. And then from that point on, every week they will have to submit a little kind of progress report, as we call it. So they basically have to tell us what they're doing and how much they have done. Some students stress out about those weekly submissions. They feel that they're not fully, completed and may not be good. But the truth is we don't really evaluate them, at least not for grading purposes. So it's more to prompt the students to do something, early on. But we do try to provide some feedback, so it's not always possible to provide feedback for every single team. As I said, we have close to 1,000 teams, and as you can imagine, it takes immense amounts of time to grade that work. But we do have coaches who read that work and try to provide at least some general feedback and maybe like a sentence or two for each of the students. So we'll see how much we will be able to do it this time, but as I said, we'll at least try to have general feedback for the students. And then, yes, at the end, 1 week before the project is over, they can submit the drafts. And again, the main purpose of that submission of the full draft is to kind of prompt them to have something done 1 week before the final deadline. But also what that allows them to do is they submit those drafts through Turnitin, the same system that we use for submissions of the final reports. And so here first they can test how the system works, but also they get a full plagiarism report 1 week before the final deadline. And so this way, if the team has some plagiarized work in the report, which happens often, sometimes, there would be 6 team members, 5 did a great job, but 1, for whatever reason, copied and pasted a few pages of the intranet. The team will know about it in advance and will have time to do something about it. And so it's also like a learning opportunity for them and, sometimes unexpected, but at the same time, they have time to deal with that. Then when they're fully done with the project, they will receive, well, first of all, you, the instructors, and that's very important. So once the project is over, we will ask you to evaluate the reports from the teams that you have students on. And so this way, if you happen to have 5 students, you will evaluate 5 reports. If you have 100 students, like me, for example, or Martha has even more this time, so they'll have to evaluate more. The good news is, don't worry, we do have some help. So if you happen to have a very, very large class, we will be able to perhaps assign a coach, one of our people from the coaching program who will help you with the grading. So obviously it's impossible to read 150 reports in 1 week. And my first time when we did it, I decided to print them, and I asked my assistant to print the reports. And so she printed all 150 or whatever number I had, and we are talking like this much paper, like literally, like half a meter thick pile of paper. And so it's just impossible to read, so you have to solicit help or read, not read everything, read the, executive summaries of each chapter, kind of go by that. Then when it's all done, the students will receive, so first of all, we will select the winners based on your evaluations. But then we will also send students something that looks like this. So here you see it without the name, so that's the code that we use to generate 5,000 of those final documents. But they will receive something like this. It's like a 20-page document, and they will have first their intelligence report, cultural intelligence report. So they take a series of actually cultural intelligence tests, and they will receive a very detailed evaluation of, of their cultural intelligence, what it means, what to do about it, how to improve it further, and stuff like that. Many of them actually use it when they apply for jobs, for example. If their results are good, they can brag about it, and they include it in portfolio. Then they will have a personal performance review, so the score and stuff like that. Then they will have a personal performance review, so that's where we will provide them with an evaluation of their own individual performance, but also performance of their team. So there will be here a summary of their peer evaluations and timeliness and diligence and all the other things that we track, but also the evaluation of the report and the feedback on the report. So all the things that you will write when you will be evaluating the reports, we will concatenate it, kind of consolidate it, and send it to each team. So this way they will be able to get detailed feedback on their work. And then we will send them a recommendation letter. We used to receive, I don't know, several hundred requests for recommendation letters every semester, and it takes a lot of time to do it individually. So now we send out all 5,000 automatically. And so here it would be, personalized, reference letter for John Smith, and, this is what John did, and these are the skills that he acquired. And then based on our records, we can say that John did, and it literally provides some numbers and percentiles, how well he or she did compared to the rest of the group. And then in the end, the system is programmed to basically recommend or not recommend the person. So if all the numbers are high, the system will say, I can confidently recommend John for a job that requires teamwork and complex problem solving, for example. Or maybe I can just simply recommend, not confidently. Or if it happens to be a very low performer, we don't have many of those, but there would be, maybe 5%. The letter may literally say, I cannot recommend this person for this type of assignment. And then in the end, they will have the certificates. So with the certificates, we will send you the complete set of certificates for your students about 3 weeks before the end of the project. And so this way you can print them if you want and distribute in the class, in the classroom. And so usually you can order them online. In fact, I use some leftovers here. So on nice paper, they will cost you like, I don't know, maybe 5 cents a copy. And so if you have like a class of 100 students, it will cost you like $10 maybe to print them, or maybe use a local print shop. But then when you give them to the students in the class, they will like it very much. And but not all professors can do it. Some teach courses online, and so for that reason, we email one to each student in the end, just in case they didn't get a hard copy from the professor. Next, we will have, do it twice a year, the XCulture Symposium. So the next one will be in Italy, and then after that it will be in Nashville, Tennessee. And so in Miami, we had about 150 students, 43 countries. The one that we do in the United States, usually we have a limit of 50 students because it's organized together with the Academy of International Business, the Southeast USA division. And so they love our participants, and we've been working together for a long time. But they're afraid that if we bring too many students, the conference will look too much like a student gathering, not professor gathering. So we try to limit the number of participants there. But the best students will receive invitations to that symposium, and we will not be able to give everyone a travel stipend. But what we can do is to give them support letters, so they can provide up to 5 names of potential sponsors, like the school, the employers, local municipal, government and stuff like that. And we will write very detailed support letters asking those sponsors to help students to attend that symposium. And we always have, it seems like every student gets some sort of support from somewhere. We even once had, by the way, a student group from Italy, from Trieste, where they went to the mayor of the city and said, 7 of us were invited to the symposium, could you sponsor us? And the mayor of the city sponsored all 7 of them. So we had a group of 7 students that, attended the meeting, so it worked very well. And then the final stage, the best students can be invited to what we call the X-Culture coaching program. What that is, we had 35 of those last semester, so there were about 400 applicants. We selected 50. They had 1 month of theoretical training where we taught them how to give feedback, how to resolve conflicts, how to use online communication tools, how to organize webinars, record video lectures, develop training modules, all kinds of stuff that coaches need. And then basically for a semester, they serve as coaches. So they read students' weekly submissions and provide some feedback. There is an email called xculture.org where students can ask for help, and then a coach will be assigned to them and will help them. So they provide service to the students while also gaining experience as coaches, as managers, as mentors, and share their wisdom from the times when they participated. And so this is a wonderful experience for them. In fact, they will gain experience that not even many managers have. I mean, they literally supervised hundreds of global virtual teams, organized webinars, delivered training, counseling, conflict resolution, feedback, all kinds of things. And so a wonderful thing to have on the resume when you apply for jobs. And so those of your students who will do very well and have good results will be invited to this program for the next semester. So that's very briefly about the dynamics, and then some of the challenges. As Teet said before, one of the things that you will definitely, absolutely for sure, will hear, in fact, probably even every week, is you will hear complaints from your students that somebody on their team is not performing well, is not participating. And so we are taking it extremely seriously. We have, in fact, conducted a series of experiments trying to change the design of the project to minimize free writing, and we're able to reduce the, if you want to call it, free writing rate from about 30% to about 3% now. So it used to be that about 30% of the students would be receiving very low peer evaluations and the teams were not happy with them. Now it's only about 3%, but still we do have those. And unfortunately, in any team, not only in our team, in any team, there would be always people who are not participating actively for whatever reason. Got sick, busy at work, broke up with boyfriend, girlfriend, started participating well, but had a conflict in the team and decided to stop, or was providing wonderful ideas, but the team did not appreciate them. And so kind of, again, lost interest. All kinds of things will be happening. The real rate is actually not that high. So we track it very carefully, and usually it's around half a team member per team. So out of 6 people or so, there would be like half it, like every other team will have 1 who is not participating. There will be a few teams who will not be lucky and will have even 2 sometimes. And our studies show that when you have more than 2, then everybody stops working, because, if one doesn't work, everybody else keeps working and just, are not happy. But if half of the team drops out, and we would have like 3 or 4 teams like that, everybody else says, why should I work on it? So that is problematic, and we try to intervene. But at the same time, even though the problem is not as big as it may look like, so every week we ask, who participates, who doesn't, how many people participate actively. And as I said, the numbers are not bad at all. So most people participate, and those who don't, it's not like they disappear completely. It's just the team members are not very happy with them. But you will hear a lot about that. And the reason for this is because, when there is a problem, students will tell you. And you may have, let's say, 20 students, 20 teams, 18 are doing very well, but 2 are not. And you will hear from only those 2 and not from the other 18. And so especially after the first week, and then for like 2 or 3 weeks, you will be under the impression that everything is not going well. And so because all you hear is that somebody is not participating. So in that case, I will tell you 2 things. 1, look at the numbers, and you will be receiving the detailed report on every single student, not only your student, and you will see that it's not too bad. And 2, the truth is, especially in global virtual teams, it's very hard to see somebody else's effort. So people don't see each other, and in many cases they assume that nothing's being done, on the other end. And so much of the complaints that you will hear, that will be purely perceptual, because you would receive a complaint and they will say there is such and such student who is not working. And then you go and look at the data, and it looks like that student completes the progress survey every week, actually receives decent peer evaluations from other team members. And in fact, in many cases, you go to that instructor and you say, we have a complaint about one of your students. And the professor says, oh, I actually got the same complaint from that student. He says his team is not participating. He's doing all the work. So in many cases, it's just the visibility of that effort that is not quite there, in global virtual teams. And in many cases, people, sort of the problems loom larger than they may really be. And so in that case, it's very important, extremely important. In fact, this is probably the most important thing I can tell you, especially to those who participate the first time. There are two things you can do. One thing is terrible, but many of you will do it, and it's the worst policy you can think of. So when a student comes to you and complains about something, doesn't matter what, like for example, my team member is not participating, or the work they turn in is poor quality or plagiarized, or they never attend meetings, we want to have a Skype meeting and they never have the time for that, or you know, whatever, or their English is not good. So the worst thing you can do is to say something like this. Or you poor student, I feel so sorry for you. It's very bad. You come from an elite university and you deserve better team. Let me talk to us and let me see what we can do. Maybe we can kick out that student from your team. And then what happens in that case is that, first of all, no, we cannot do much about it. So if that's the personality of the student, or if the student is busy, even if we complain, more likely than not, the situation will not change that much. The student, your student, will blame you because you promised to fix the problem and you didn't fix. So it must be you are the bad professor. It's a stupid project. It's a stupid course. Why did I take it? And so the student will not learn anything and will not be happy and will blame you in the end, and you will get poor peer teaching evaluations. An alternative way, and that's a much better policy, is to say something like this. You know what? I kind of feel sorry for you, but at the same time, I'm very, very happy that you're in this situation. Because that's the whole purpose of the project. I mean, don't you think that it will be any different when you do it as part of your job in a year when you graduate and have a real job? You will always have someone who will not show up. You will always have someone who will plagiarize. You will always have someone who is a bully or who is whatever else. So deal with that. I mean, now you can try whatever you want. I mean, I'll still give you a good grade as long as your team tells me that you've been doing a good job. So even if you end up with enemies on all 6 continents, you can still get an A in my course. The whole point here is to give you a preview of what's in store for you in the future, so you can kind of try to deal with it now and have an easier time in the future. So yes, I feel sorry for you, but yeah, go deal with that. Don't worry too much. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Just, you know, try your best, send that student a reminder, and yeah, just use it as a learning opportunity. And in that case, the students will love you because you showed them, you know, some wisdom and you showed them what needs to be done. They don't expect you to fix the problem. They learn something new, and you get high teaching evaluations. And so what they will say in the comments, and we, you know, like literally 90% of them say something like this. They will say, it was so hard, and several times I was ready to give up, and I thought, why did I get into this? But now looking back, actually, you know what? That was the best experience I've ever had. You know what? It was definitely worth it. And so that's exactly what we want. Anyway, so I'm going to stop here, and then maybe you have some questions, and perhaps even those of you who have participated before, if you want to also share your experiences and answers, so it would be even better if I tell that. So any comments, any questions, any concerns perhaps, or observations? Anyone?
Okay.
Maybe I'll say, yes, go ahead, please, Tiit. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I have the following questions. First, such a bit technical question is what you demonstrated is guidebook for using virtual tools. Maybe there are so many new things, maybe something could be added there. For instance, sometimes students ask why Google Docs, why not Google Drive? Because Google Drive has more formats for cooperation, so
right.
Maybe it could be a bit updated.
This is a wonderful question, and we've had many meetings about it with other professors. There has been even a push to create our own platform where students log in, communicate, share documents and stuff. But eventually we decided that first it would be very difficult to develop something like that, and second, it probably would be not a good service to the students. So what we do at this time, we try to at least review or kind of train them in how to use in all of those free or nearly free online collaboration tools available. And I think at this time we overview, I think it's about 16 of them. So Google Docs, Google Drive, Dropbox, Doodle, Slack, Trello, Basecamp, I'm probably Skype, Facebook groups, Viber, WhatsApp. I may be missing a few more. But then we'll leave it up to the team to decide what they want to use. And so here the idea is that first, not all of those tools may work in all countries, like many teams like Facebook, but we always have, for example, China, where Facebook sort of doesn't work. And then there are always like 5 American students. I'm not sure why it's always American, who refuse to open a Facebook account to work with their team. So there are always like 5 cases a semester when there is a conflict about that. The team says we want to have a Facebook closed group, but one of the team members refuses to create a Facebook account. But the idea there is that first we leave it up to them to decide what they want to use. But second, the reason we teach them how to use these free tools is because first they are wonderful, but second they can continue using them after the project. So many of them tried things like Dropbox or Google Docs for the first time, or Box for that matter, for the first time, and at the same time they like it and then continue using it in the future. So if we had a proprietary platform, I guess project's over and all that knowledge basically is useless. Here they can try and use. But yes, some teams use Box, some teams use Google Drive, some teams use Dropbox. Ultimately it's up to the team to decide what they want to use. I personally think Dropbox, but then again, you know, it's you know,
I think it's a very right approach to use Lease, which can be used later in real life. Only maybe not just because things are developing, maybe adding something or changing Google Doc to Google Drive. But I have another question, which is in my mind more fundamental. Well, actually, I am not sure exactly what information, when, in which format students receive. Is it possible to be a test student to receive exactly everything what my students will receive?
This one, let me share my screen and show you quickly what, this is a very, very good question. And I need to show you something so you know.
Because if they complain something and ask or how I interpret, then I can open it and explain.
Yes. What Tit here is suggesting is that maybe we should create a test or like a student account for every professor.
Yeah.
And then every correspondence that goes to the students, we send to instructors. And I had done it in 2 semesters about a year ago. And it didn't work very well. It's a great idea. And when somebody suggested it the first time, I thought it would be a wonderful idea. Why not? So this way you get the correspondence. The truth is that just like with the students, there is always somebody on the team who didn't get the memo. The same thing happens with instructors, even though all of us have terminal degrees, you know, PhD degree and stuff like that. And so you would think that, you know, of all the people on this planet, we are the most qualified people, you know, to work on a project like this. But what happens is, so we would have about 150, 160 professors. And when we automatically create an account for each of them, like literally half of them don't get what those emails are, and you send them a weekly email. And they are trying to either fill out the survey and then are puzzled by some of the questions, or they are asking questions like, why did I receive it? I'm a professor, I'm not a student. And dealing with that confusion, it takes so much time and usually, you know, is a problem. And so what we can do is that if you want to have one of those accounts, ask us and we'll create one for you. So this way you will receive correspondence. But at the same time, and this is very important, there is really nothing that you will see there that you don't know essentially. So what happens is when we send out the weekly emails, it's exactly the same standard email that goes out every single week. So the email looks like this, and I will include that in the weekly comments. So each time when you receive your weekly performance evaluation of your students, at the end, I try to attach this very email. And so it's the standard email, so I don't change it. It's exactly the same email every single week. And it says, here is a personal survey link. It's due and the date is new. Peer evaluations, remember that, you know, we did peer evaluations and your peer evaluations are below. And just remember that if your peer evaluations drop below 2.0, we will send you a warning. But if they stay below 2.0 2 weeks in a row, we will kick you out from the team. It hardly ever happens, but sometimes we have to do that. And then they would see the list of the team members, emails, peer evaluations, and the countries. And so it's identical email every single week.
Okay,
Wednesday.
But is it so that they don't need, they don't receive any links or emails which lead them to specific maybe materials to study or?
Well, as far as the materials, again, we don't really send them anything other than what they see on this page. So the one that I showed you, where is it, 2018, where did I put it? Just a second. So 2018 1A, just a second. So all the materials are here, and we don't really send them anything else in email. So there is only the link to that to this page at the beginning of the project, and so everything they need is here. And so the only thing that I sent to you, and again, let me show it to you. This is very important. And again, if you don't get that every week, then maybe there is a problem with the email. So let me know. So, you know, we'll check that and if needed, fix the problem. So these are the copies of the weekly updates. And so like, for example, this is the one that I sent the last semester's participants after week 6. So you would get an email. It's deliberately long, and I know my emails are long, and some people, you know, every time they get my email, they say they need like 10 minutes to build up the courage to open it and start reading because they're long. But the reason I make them long is because there are so many people. If I miss something, if I miss some detail, then there will be 150 emails with questions. And so to kind of to preclude that, I send more, you know, details in the email so that you don't have to email me with additional questions. But I do always provide a summary, and those of you who participated before or after a few weeks, you will sort of know what it means. Like number 1 says latest data. So you know that that's the file with the latest data. And then if you want to read more what exactly that is, you can read, you know, point 1. Or for example, coaches providing feedback, you know, helping as much as they can. And so if you know who coaches are, you don't need to read the whole point. But if you're confused, you can read the whole paragraph. And then there is a performance review. So I provide, you know, like confidence level and average peer evaluations and peer evaluation distribution and stuff like that. Again, it's roughly the same every week, but if you would like to take a look, you have it here. And then at the end, oh, actually, yeah, that's exactly. So here is the email that I sent to the students. So it literally says, you know, this is what went out to them a few hours ago. Mm-hmm. And so that's an email. It's a test message sent to myself. So with my name and, you know, basically instead of the names, I just have name 1, name 2. And you can even click on the link and see that survey. So I'm not sure if it's going to open now because, yeah, the survey is closed now. But you would be able to see even the survey if you would like to do that. And so this approach seems to work best. But at the same time, I would be very happy to create you a student account. And so this way, at the minute your students receive this email, you will get one for yourself. You can click on the link and see and try to complete the survey.
No, just in case.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, please send me an email if you would like to have that. Maybe I'll even send an email to everybody asking if they want to have one. And if they proactively ask about that, it's my preference too that you get copies of all the correspondence. As I said, it will be kind of boring because it's the same email every single week. But at the same time, at least you will know to a minute when they went out. You will know exactly what's in that survey.
If this email is really standard, if it doesn't change, then in this case, maybe it's not so important.
Right. Yes, let's do that again. So as I said, I will send an email to everybody asking if you would like to have one of those accounts. And those of you who will ask for one, I will create one. Yeah. And so, and this is the type of correspondence that we send you every week. Again, I thought about putting it online in a nice kind of web-based package, but then eventually everybody seems to prefer Excel anyway. You can work with it easier. You see, you know how to interpret it. You can sort it. You can do whatever you want with it. And so that's what we do. So you'll see the name of your students, but not their emails, obviously, for privacy reasons. You will see the names of the instructors, and so you will be one of them here. You will see some statistics, you know, and then basically, like, let's say you are this professor. So this is your class, and these are your students, and then you just select one that you want, and you will see everything that you need to see on that student. So red is bad. So if there is anything in red, it means that the students, like, for example, here didn't complete the survey, but these are the peer evaluations the students received, 4.2 out of 5, not bad. And then, you know, you basically can look, and at this time we're talking week 6, so you have 6 weeks of data. So that's week 5, that's week 6. And so, like, for example, here we have a student who is actually struggling. So as you see, the student is not participating in the weekly progress surveys. Peer evaluations are basically, you know, 1, the lowest. He scores high on friendliness, but at the same time gets 1s for effort, for communication, and for everything else. And so when that happens, we send that student a warning. And so that student received a warning on October the 17th. And so it's right here. And then apparently didn't improve, so we had to exclude the student from the team 1 week later. In many cases, what happens even after we exclude the student then goes and reconnects with the team and says, oh guys, I was so busy, I mean, I don't know, got sick or something else. And in most cases, the team says, you know what, we want him back, put him back on the team. But if they don't want him back, once the person is excluded, and it's a very small number, as you see, you know, here, it's like, you know, 1 in 50 or so, and most of them got a warning, but not an exclusion, so that means that they got back on track and everything was fine. So it's a very small number who actually, push it to the extent that we have to exclude them. And so if we have to exclude them, what we do is we place them on one-person teams. So we will assign them to a team where they are the only team member, but this way they still work on the same assignment, they still have the same deadlines, same instructions, same client, same weekly progress surveys. You receive on them the same performance updates. And so this way you don't have to assign them a different project. So they still do the same work, it just they will have to complete it individually, not in a team. And as I said, the actual number of those who get kicked out, so it's hard to calculate the total, but if we do, like for example, look here, we have all those dots and they're counted as a number, so it would be hard, but it's usually, I don't know, maybe like 20 students get a warning every week, maybe 30. Of those, just about everybody gets back on track by the next week, but there would be like 1 or 2 that we have to exclude. And then we exclude 2, maybe 1 or 2, 3, maybe in a given week. But of those, probably about half get back on track and reconcile with the team and, get back on the team a week later. In the end, out of 5,000, we would have about 40 people who were excluded, but of those, about 20 actually dropped the course. And so we excluded them, but they sort of dropped out anyway. And there would be about 20 that are really like the cases when they just didn't do anything and didn't deserve to be on the team and they, didn't help anything. And so those would be just, kind of bad students. I always have at least one of those in my own class. And so they would kind of, flunk all the tests and stuff. So it's the case when they really don't do anything. So,
okay.
Yeah. All right. Yes, please, Hossein.
Yeah. First, a quick comment about managing all of these different projects. I assume that you have your normal teaching and other responsibilities as well. This is amazing because I work with small groups of students, and it's logistically takes a lot of time to monitor and do all of that work. So I admire for all the work that you're doing with your colleagues. In terms of questions, if we have, I think, say 10 students, it's possible that all these 10 students may end up on the same team if they all select the same company, or maybe in 2 different.
Oh, you mean the same client?
Right.
Theoretically possible, yes.
Possible, but typically, is there a way I prefer for them to be, if I have selected 10 students, for them to be at least in 5 teams? Would you recommend that we suggest in terms of how to allocate their preferences, or how do we know that they won't all going to the same company, same client? They will be in different teams, but maybe all working with.
Well, yes, every student will be on a different team, but the company they select, they would have to discuss with their team. And then the challenge here becomes, will the team agree to the... let me backtrack here. I think what Hossein is alluding here to, and it's a very, very important issue. When the time will come for you to evaluate the reports at the end of the semester, it would be much more efficient and the quality of evaluations would be much higher if you had to evaluate reports written for the same company. Let's say you have 10 students and each of them chose a different company. That means that you as an instructor will have to read 10 different challenge instructions and will have to read 10 very different reports. Whereas if it happened to be that all 10 of those teams' students chose the same client, then you would be reading 10 reports for the same company, and so it's easier for you to compare the quality, even though the task itself is similar, but again, it's different industries, different countries, so it would be much more difficult for you to kind of make direct comparisons.
Right.
So we thought about maybe instead of asking professors to evaluate the reports from the teams that their students were members of, maybe we should give them an equal number of reports written for the same company. But then the problem with that is obviously, when you read the reports from your own students, you kind of have that sense of ownership and you kind of do it for yourself. For some reason, you need to submit the grades tomorrow. You don't have to wait until everybody else is done to get the report evaluations for your own teams. So it'd be nice to do it, but it seems like it will create more problems than, solve it. But one thing we can do, and it will at least partially solve the problem, we tried it last semester and it kind of worked fine. In the readiness test, before they even placed on teams, we now have a question that asks them what company they would like to choose as a client individually. And then when we form the teams, we try to group them by that preference. It's not always possible because, maximizing the cultural diversity is a main priority. But within the available constraints of, separating the MBA students from undergraduates, making as many or putting as many countries on each team as possible, if then we have a choice of grouping people by the company preference, we do that. And so if all of your students expressed interest in the same company in that initial survey, and then if it was possible, or I cannot guarantee for all, but it probably will be possible at least in half of the cases. So we will be able to minimize the number of those companies by basically trying to put them, in teams where everybody else wants that same company. Not a fact that they will not change their preference though, because, once they have the webinars in the first week and meet the CEOs and see the product, in many cases, they will go with the personality rather than the company. So maybe they initially liked the company that makes, I don't know, that raincoats, but then once they see the presentation by the guy who does this extreme tourism in Chile, maybe they will like him so much that they will decide to switch to that industry, even though they may not be interested in tourism. But at least we will have, a better chance of them self-selecting into that company.
Okay. A couple of questions related to evaluation part. You said in terms of the final report that they need to submit, will they receive some type of guidelines in terms of structure, expectations of the final report, and also throughout the process, will there be any type of, other professors grade them? So what I receive as a professor for my students, I receive some feedback from others in terms of not only surveys, but also evaluations. So there are ways for me to kind of get an idea of how I should evaluate them based on collective work that they've done, based on opinions from others. So that's kind of my understanding of it, but I think just in some guidelines that are available now, you're showing on screen here.
Yes. So yes, what I wanted to show is that, yes, when the time comes to evaluate the reports, you will receive a file that will look something like this. Report evaluations. You will have a blank page that looks kind of like this. You will have the teams, and you will know which ones you have to evaluate, and you will have, like a matrix. But then, and you will have, I don't have the file ready right away, but you will have like a file with the rubrics. But what the students see is this. So they see the instructions. And so, for example, for this particular company, first section is market. So they have to select the market and do some market analysis. And they will see the exact rubrics right here that you as an instructor will see at the end of the semester. So they not only know what needs to be done, they will know from the very beginning how it will be evaluated. And then the next section for this report is marketing. So they need to decide on the best promotion channels, message, promotion brochure, or materials. Same thing. So they will see right away how exactly it will be evaluated. Exactly the same rubrics. And then for management, this company asked for some extra information on the entry mode, on the logistics. Same thing here. And then in the end, they will have also the report structure and formatting guidelines. So, the length and the, font and everything else. And so executive summary. And so they have rubrics for the executive summary, and then the formatting, all that stuff is also here. And then they will also have the submission guidelines at the end. Same thing here. So they would go to this page, create an account, use this course ID. So all of this is right here. So it's probably not perfect. There will be still some questions and confusion, but at least we give them as much information as possible to minimize that sort of a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
One thing, if I may, just because what Hossein started talking about in the beginning, and I would like to address that very important. So he said, thank you so much for managing the project. It's such a big project and stuff like that. And so what I would like to say in that regard is, especially those who are first-time participants, so you kind of know what to expect. The way we can manage such a big project with virtually no budget and a couple of graduate assistants only is because we're not a company and not a service provider. So you can buy, for example, a case or a simulation from, for example, Ivy or from Harvard or from publishers or stuff like that. And in that case, you're buying a service, you're paying for it, and you get all the support. Like if you use like Pearson's MyLab, you would have a nice interface and students will log in there and stuff like that. And so we are not a company, we're not a business, we are a network. And so we are partners. So I just happen to be, the one who does a little more coordination, but we expect you to be a full-fledged partner in this partnership. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways we manage it all so well is because we have all of you. So every time there is a need for something, I would send out an email to everybody saying, can somebody look at this document and maybe copy edit it? Or can somebody help with this? Or maybe we have a difficult situation in this team, somebody can maybe help here. And most of you always reply, like literally within a few minutes, I would get like 10 people who are saying, yes, I can help. And then at the same time, as I said, you will see a lot of things that will not be done perfectly. Like, for example, sometimes my emails or documents that go out to students will contain errors or will contain typos. Or our interface, as I said, is a primitive email. So we don't really have any, flashy, our logo even, it was literally created in Microsoft PowerPoint in 5 minutes. We never hired any designers. And it looks maybe very amateurish, but, it works for us. Mm-hmm. But so not only do we rely on you to help, but it also means that you have a voice and you have a right to do or change things or demand changes. So when you see something, as I said, you're not expected to complain, you're expected to fix the problem, essentially.
Yeah, cooperate, and this is a collaborative.
Right. So if you see something's not right, just, say, oh, I see there is a problem here, I can help. And so usually that's what happens. And so that allows us to, on the one hand, have this wonderful, collaborative relationship where we, as I said, help each other. And at the same time, it allows us to lead this global project with minimal, minimal resources and help and budget. And so I would like to encourage you, as I said, to not feel yourself as a service recipient, as a customer. Right. But literally as a partner in this enterprise, when it comes to research, when it comes to all those hackathons, data processing, designing the instructions, designing the project, I cannot pretend that I know the best way to run it. In fact, every single semester we make some changes because somebody comes along and says, you know what, I think it would be better if we do it that way. And everybody like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And so we change, sometimes in fact in the middle of the semester. So don't be shy because on the one hand you have the right, and on the other hand, we kind of depend on you, not being shy and helping and, doing what you can. So that's just to set your expectations right.
Sure.
Yes, Martha, you had something to say, sorry.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Most of the questions I had you answered, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's, and being active on this. My one question I have that hasn't been answered yet, mixing masters and undergrads. I've got, all of mine are semi-experienced MSc students, so they're not as experienced as MBAs, typical MBAs, but they're more experienced than senior undergrads. They've all had exchanges, and I just the documentation is a little ambiguous. It says that you try and put masters with masters and undergrad with undergrad. It helps me to know, so I know what kind of role to encourage my students to take, given kind of where they are compared with the others in their class.
This is a very important question, and the instructions are sort of deliberately ambiguous just because it's not a clear cut.
No, that's what I figured, and you probably don't know until you know who's.
We are fully determined to keep them separate. Our studies show that when you mix teams, they have more conflicts, and it's not because they objectively, it's not because master students are stronger. In fact, when you look at the quality of the reports, MBAs don't necessarily write better reports than undergraduates, or likewise not necessarily score higher on anything else we measure, from IQ to CQ to anything else.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
Right, but when you mix them, that provides this visible indicator, and so anything goes wrong, they have something to blame. And so even though that could have gone wrong in any other team, but once you have some older, some younger, all of a sudden the older ones say, oh, those kids, they didn't know what to do. And then the younger ones say, oh, they're so pushy, so demanding. And so we try and make every single effort to keep them separate. And in about 90% of the cases, they are separate, but there are sometimes exceptions. And we may actually have that situation this semester, so we'll see how it goes. So when we form teams, our main priority is to maximize cultural diversity.
Good.
And sometimes it may happen that we have, let's say, a lot of students from a particular country MBA and very few from that same country, and very few other MBA students from other countries in that semester. In this case, we have a choice between fewer countries but all MBA or masters, versus some undergraduates, some masters, but more countries. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those choices are not easy, and so sometimes we eventually decide that maybe it's better to maximize diversity as opposed to separate the levels. And so the reason I said we're not sure how it's going to go this semester, in the early track, unusually we have, it's not that we have too many American students and Canadian students this time. It's for the first time, and that's something that was very unexpected. We always have overpopulation of Colombia and Brazil in the early track. So in those countries, the semester starts early, and we always have, in fact, sometimes we end up with multiple students from those countries on the same team just because so many of them participate. And somehow this semester in Latin America, the semester starts a week later, and that's something I didn't know. And so our usual Colombians and Brazilians are actually in the late track for some reason. So we have disproportionately many American students in the early track this time. And so that's where we may run into some of those, diversity issues. We may end up with multiple American students on some teams. We will make sure that they come from different states, but we may have, several American students per team, and then maybe 2-3 more countries from other countries. And so hopefully it will not affect our ability to keep the masters and undergraduates separate. But then again, the second time when it may happen is there will be some students in every class who will take the readiness test late. And so we will continue adding students to the teams for the first week or so, and then we will even add some students later on. So for the first week, we will keep forming new teams, and usually it's not a problem. But then after the first week, you or some of you will have students who will, as I said, late, or maybe was sick the first week and only now is ready to join a team. And so what happens in those cases, we try to place them on teams that specifically ask for additional team members. Because once the project is underway, you don't want to add somebody to a team that is already working fine and doesn't need more team members. And so we will have several cases when we will have a student who is now ready to be placed on teams. And let's say that student is an undergraduate student. But then we have several MBA students and only MBA students that are begging for an additional team member. And in that case, obviously, it's better to put that undergraduate student on an MBA team just because they need one and he's available than to put him or her on an undergraduate team that doesn't need one student. So for this reason, we always start with keeping them completely separate. But then by week 3 or so, there will be some people who will be on mixed teams. And in that case, as I said, we try to put like the last year undergraduate with MBAs if needed, or, try to look at the scores on the test. So try to, put more mature students in those mixed teams so that it's at least more or less matched by the age. But there may be some exceptions.
So that all makes sense. It just it's helpful if I know. So presumably that will be part of the email report. I'll be able to tell. If my students are in mixed teams, I'll encourage them to take more of a leadership role. Because this is obviously virtual teams and organizations. You often end up with mixed hierarchy teams, and mixed experience teams. Even if everybody is technically at the same level, some business units are larger than others. So somebody who's at the same level may have more or less experience.
No, you got it exactly right. So yes,
that narrative. I have no problem with the narrative. In fact, I think it's a good narrative to have. It's just helpful if I know, so I know how to coach them.
Exactly.
And just a technical. So all my students have had their welcome email.
Yes. So if we have your names, it means that the email address, welcome letters went out.
Okay, good.
The system is programmed to send a reminder to those who haven't done the test every 24 hours.
Super.
So you don't have to do much. The only thing sometimes when email changes, or sometimes we end up having some people in different what they call panels in Qualtrics. And so sometimes they may receive reminders even after they completed the test just because of that ambiguity. So if that happens, just tell them to ignore it. And at some point we will, those reminders will stop coming.
Okay.
There's one more issue, and again, that may be interesting even for those who have participated many times. Sometimes you would have the same level by the level of study, but very different age groups. You could literally have sometimes like a 19-year-old undergraduate on a team, and then you can have like a 45-year-old who just happened to go back to school, but has, a lot of managerial experience and work experience, and then they end up on the same team. And usually we didn't pay attention to these things. We would just say, well, in some companies you have some older people, some younger people, sorry. But this time, for the first time, we're actually asking them in the readiness test if they have experience and how old they are. So we didn't do that before, but now we're trying to ask that. And so what we'll try to do is to maybe match them also by age. And it's not so much because we would like to minimize the conflict. It's just those who are like in their 30s or 40s, in many cases have families and have other obligations. And then the younger students, they sometimes want to have a meeting literally like at 1 a.m. your time zone. And for them, it's not a problem. They're not asleep anyway. But for those who have families, who have jobs, sometimes it doesn't work well. And so this time we will see, I cannot guarantee, but we may try to actually match them also by the kind of work experience and age profile.
Well, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it will be possible, as I said, because again, we try to maximize the cultural diversity first. But we have this dilemma. On the one hand, those who are more experienced and older, you would expect them to be more mature and more kind of hardworking. But at the same time, they have so many more other obligations. They have kids in school, they have jobs, they have what else. And so even though they're better prepared, but in many cases, they're less available. And so sometimes that also leads to some tension. And so we'll try to separate them. But again, I cannot guarantee that it will be possible in every single case.
If I may ask one more question.
So Martha needs to leave? Yes. Very nice meeting you. Yes. Anyone have more questions? So I see Jennifer and I see Teet. Yes. Okay. Whoever wants to go first.
Thanks.
And Salman.
Okay. Yes.
Whenever you
I may be a bit naive actually. See, I was wondering like what exactly are we supposed to do in the first couple of weeks, except for the last thing I got it like we need to evaluate. But yeah.
Yes, that's a very good question. So once you have your first lecture, tell the students that this project will be part of the project, and tell them that they will receive a welcome letter. If we have your contacts, then your student names, then probably they have received it already. If not, once you send us the names, they will send a welcome letter, and you will tell them that please look for an email from xculture admin at xculture.org. And so that is the email that you need to read, and there will be a link in that email to the resources, training materials for the project, and a link to your readiness test. And then tell them to take that test as soon as they can. And then once the semester starts, we kind of do all of the work for you, but it would be wonderful if you could devote a few minutes every lecture to the project. So for example, in my class, I would always have the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the lecture where I simply ask the students how they are doing, if they have any questions, if they have any concerns, and we would talk about it. And there is always one student who says, oh, my kid subscribes here, turns the computer, everybody say hi, everybody says hi. So sort of kind of, make sure that everything's going fine. We do have situations from time to time when sometimes, some professors may, again, be sick or busy or cannot participate for whatever other reason. And so in that case, we still do the job for you. So if it happens to be that you forget to send them a reminder, no worries, we will send that reminder. If there is a student who is not doing well, ideally we'd like you to talk to the student. Once you get that weekly evaluation and somebody is highlighted red, we would like you to reach out to that student right away and talk to the student. But if you don't do it, that's okay, we will do it anyways. So my assistant or one of the coaches will reach out to that student and ask if everything's fine, if help is needed. But again, we would like you to do as much as possible. So you don't have to spend too much time on this. As I said, we will do it for you if you don't do anything. But at the same time, if you can be more closely involved with this, that would be much appreciated. And then when you really have to do something, that's at the end of the project when the reports are ready for evaluation. So that's when you really have to take those reports and evaluate them. But then again, from that point on, again, we will do everything else. So we'll send them out, the information letter, the certificates, the invitation to the podium. So again, we will keep you informed, and we would like you to be involved. And if you would like to suggest name of the students who should be invited to the symposium, we will take that into account. Or if you have a student who maybe didn't do much and you believe he or she does not deserve a certificate, we have a few of those every semester, we will again take that into account. But yes, it's technically up to you. So the more the better, but don't feel obliged to do too much. If that explains it.
Well explained, thank you.
Yes.
One last question. I mean, not a question actually. Like the session what we're having tomorrow, I hope that is a repeat or it's continuation.
Yes. Tomorrow. I'm going to do the same thing. It's just we have so many professors, and I knew that not everybody is available on the weekend or on a business day. I thought I would do it twice. So those of you who prefer today will attend today. Those who prefer tomorrow will attend tomorrow, and those who can't attend either one will have a recording and can just watch a recording.
Sure, thank you. And it's almost like 10:40 p.m. over here.
Yes,
my kid is with me. You can see that. I mean, we're at home. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
I know many of you have to go, so maybe one last question or two questions, and then we can communicate online. And we'll have these meetings from time to time anyway, so I'll try to have them regularly. So if there is anything else to discuss, you will have many other opportunities. But yes, Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, now I have such a question that, okay, if we have in a class maybe 10 or even more students who are in teams, and these teams have happened to choose the same company. What is your pedagogical approach? Would you encourage them to exchange information inside the class or not? Or how you deal with this situation? Because it's also a danger that they just present exactly the same input.
Yes, we have this dilemma here. On the one hand, we would like the companies, the clients, to receive as good reports as possible. And we know, we actually have done experiments on that. We know that when different teams exchange information, then the results are better. So they sort of, learn what others do. They build upon those ideas. They sometimes steal those ideas and develop them better. And so as a result, that leads to better quality proposals. And so the companies are happier and the students are happier. But on the other hand, it is still part of the grade. And so we don't want them to, basically copy each other's work. And so where do you find this ground? I don't know what to say. My personal preference is that they do collaborate, but I do see the problem with that. So I don't know. What do you think? Like, what's your preference? I don't know.
I would ask them when they present a report to the system. In my class, they should have additional reflection of their personal role.
Right. Right. I don't know. I mean, we even tried in some semesters to develop a system where they can actively collaborate across teams, like provide a discussion board so that they can exchange ideas, they can criticize each other. In some semesters, we gave them access to all the prior submissions from the last semester so that they can look at them. And most of the companies participate. In fact, I think all of the companies participate multiple times, unless it's a first-time participant. Yeah. And so we gave them access to all their prior reports so that they can look at them and hopefully learn from them and do even better. But then again, in most cases, most teams don't want to engage in conversations, so they wouldn't join the discussion board, wouldn't exchange ideas. But when we look at how many people actually went to that folder to see the reports from the last semester, there were like 5 or 6 per week. Okay. So it seems like most of them don't have an interest in kind of looking even at others' work. But I don't know, I think it would be beneficial for them to see each other's work. It would lead to better learning, better quality reports, but then also creates a possibility for literally copying plagiarism. And I don't know. I mean, if you have an opinion about that, I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I am not so afraid because I have more such experienced students. They start disputing anyhow.
Yes, yes.
So or sometimes they are too busy to copy.
Yeah. As I said, I prefer that they collaborate as much as possible. As I said, that leads for a better experience for them. They learn more, they do a better job. The companies get better reports. The students meet new people. So as I said, they argue sometimes about the ideas. So I think it is better. But then again, if the report is a big part of the grade, and if they simply steal somebody's idea, that is a problem. And my hope is that when they collaborate, it's really collaboration, not copying and pasting. But
quick question.
So if somebody has an answer to that difficult question, give it to me because I don't know. Yes.
Quick question about the webinar you mentioned at the beginning of each session. You have 2 webinars for students to become familiar with the clients. Are we expected to participate? I think
no.
We don't need to. I thought it would, for us also,
we will send you the link.
The problem that they're facing, for us to know more about the client and the problem so that we can work with the students.
So in most cases, actually, not so many students attend those webinars live. So when we have the live session, we would have, depending on the popularity of the content, we may have like 20 students in attendance, maybe 30. So it's a very, very small percentage of all of the students. But then what happens is most of them watch the recording. So usually we have those webinars on business days in the mornings, like around this time, but on the business days. And so for the Asians, it's already too late, they're already sleeping. Europeans can participate, but for them that's like late afternoon and most of them are on the way home. And for Americans, Americas, Latin America, North America, for them, they have classes at that time. So many of them cannot attend live even if they want to. But what you see then, like in the next 5 days, there would be like 2,000 views of that webinar on the YouTube because it seems like most of them then watch the recording. And I assume that even though not all of them watch it, at least somebody from the team always watches it. And so sometimes, in fact, some of the webinars would have like literally like 10,000 views. Even people who are not in the project watch it. We make it public, so why not? So everybody can watch. So for you, you don't have to attend. You're welcome to. You have the links. You're definitely welcome to attend, but you don't have to. And then if you have the time to watch the recording, you're welcome to. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine too. So it's optional. It's only to give students more information. All right. Oh, yes. Jennifer, one more question.
Yes. When should we expect coaches to get back to teams if they're having problems?
Can you say that again, please?
When would we expect the coaches to get back to teams when the student teams ask for help or clarification from the coaches?
This is a very good question. We actually had a meeting with the coaches yesterday about that, because we felt, or at least I felt, that we were not expedient enough last semester. So the way it worked was we have this coaching@xculture.org email. And we had a guy who was responsible for checking that email and then assigning coaches to cases, on a regular basis. But he was a student himself, and sometimes it would be literally a day or two before he even gets to that email. So this time I'm hiring someone whose job will be to check that email account 3 times a day and assign cases to coaches, like right away. So my hope is that they will hear back, probably within the same day or maybe next day. The only problem here is that, again, it may depend on the coach. So some of them may be more proactive, others may be a little bit, less dedicated. So I will not be surprised if sometimes it will be more than a day, but the goal is a response within a few hours. And so the guy who will be checking the email will assign a case to a coach and will include in that email names and contacts of all the team members and all the professors of those team members. So this way the coach has all the contacts and can reach out to a specific person or maybe the whole team to collect more information if needed. Or if it's just simple, something simple, like for example, here is our weekly deliverable, could you please give us some feedback? Then in that case, it's easier so they can go right into it. But again, it may take a day or two to get that feedback back to them. So we'll see. So I don't want to make any promises. We'll see how it goes. Another thing, and I should be open about that, so the coaching program starts also on Monday, so basically tomorrow. And so we will have, it seems like about 50 coaches this semester, but they also will have training for the first month. So which means that they will not be available to start providing help right away from week 1, just because they will still be in training themselves. And until they take a test, I will not allow them to work with the teams. But we will have about a dozen head coaches, as we call them. So those are the coaches from the last semester who loved the project so much that they want to participate again. And so I make them head coaches. And so they will kind of coach coaches, provide feedback on feedback, watch the webinars that the coaches organize and provide feedback on that. And so they will be helping us to manage the teams during those first few weeks while the new coaches are in training. So it may be a little bit slower in the first few weeks, but then once they're done with the training, hopefully we will have all the coaches available. And then for the second half of the early track and for the entire late track, hopefully there will be enough coaches available so that each case will be addressed within a few hours.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's still a beta program with the coaching. So as I said, we're still experimenting. We've done it twice now, and it seems like we got it more or less worked out. But as I said, some things are still not as smooth or not as worked out as, as hopefully soon it will be. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, I suggest we stop here. Yes, I know that you need to go. Yes. Unless you have more questions, you're welcome to stay. But otherwise, let's officially conclude the meeting. And yes, if you had another question or comment, please go ahead. Teed?
No.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
I thought you had a question. All right. Well, very nice to see you all, and many of you I saw for the first time. So we will try to have these meetings, if not every week, then maybe once every 2 weeks or so. So this way we will be able to provide you a series of updates, but at the same time, if you have questions or comments or suggestions, we will be able to exchange them. And then obviously email is always a good way to communicate. So if something urgent comes up, either call me directly or send me an email. I'll try to respond right away.
Okay.
Right, well, thank you so much.
Very much.
So let's hope it will be a good semester. Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.